future. So apologies about that. It happens. Also, John was originally planning to be on the tasting tonight, but he had to change plans. I personally think this is a great opportunity because we actually have someone who's even more hands-on and who's been involved with the distillery from the very beginning to tell us its story tonight. So Darren, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I should also mention my colleague Sean is on the chat, and he's going to be our lead tonight just because I'm feeling slightly under the weather. But I'm going to be kicking around and asking some questions as we go too. But Darren, thanks for joining us at 12 in the morning in the UK.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, pleased to be here.
Yeah. So tell us maybe a little bit about yourself, how you got involved at Lochlea. But I think for me, the real mystery that I want to solve is how did you guys get to like roughly 2.5 years before anyone even knew there was a distillery on this farm with a connection to Robert Burns making whiskey 30 minutes outside of Glasgow?
Yeah, so my name's Darren McCormick, and I'm production manager at Lochlea. So as you said, Andy, I've been at Lochlea since January 2018. So my role is predominantly overseeing the production process at Lochlea. So from sending the barley away to be malted to the filling the casks and working with John in selecting casks for bottling and stuff like that. So it's a very varied role, a very enjoyable role, as you can imagine. And yeah, so I suppose the secret. So when we started at Lochlea, I mean, it's a very small. Well, it's not a small distillery, but it's a small farm, and it's in the middle of nowhere, really, surrounded by other farms and things like that. So it was fairly easy to keep it low down. So when we first started, it was myself and my colleague George and the former distillery manager. So there was only 3 of us when we first started, and yeah, it was just a case of heads down and making whiskey. And the funny thing about it is that the Scottish people didn't know anything about us. So when I would say to an industry colleague from Scotland, they would say, "Oh, wow, never heard of it before," and things like that. But we still managed to be found by German tourists,
Of course.
which is crazy.
How did you keep Ingvar Rond from putting it in the malt whiskey yearbook? Because like, surely at some point he would have been like, "I want to put this into the yearbook," and you're like, "No, don't."
Exactly that. He did get in contact about featuring in the yearbook, but yeah, exactly that. We just said no, please don't at the moment, until we're ready. And yeah, that sort of went on. Again, there's a town just maybe about 6-7 kilometers outside of Lochlea, and nobody from there knew there was a distillery, and some people still don't, which is quite funny. But sorry.
But I mean, I think that's it. Anyone who's been to the distillery, and I've had the pleasure of visiting, and I've got a few quick slides that I can share that are easy to pull up because they're on my Instagram account. But you could easily drive by the farm and not even notice that there's a distillery there. Like, it looks like a farm. One of the buildings, once you get up close to it, does look more like a distillery, but your barley storage, all that stuff, it's hidden in this farm, in this rolling countryside south of Glasgow, that on roads that probably people don't drive very often unless they're going somewhere very specific. And yeah, if you happen to drive by at the right angle, maybe you'll notice that there's a still room, but most people probably won't.
No, you're right. You sort of have to know what you're looking for, I guess, to know there's a distillery. I mean, small details like making sure empty barrels aren't piled too high outside, things like that. But we're not actively trying to keep it secret. We're not open to the public, and we don't want to disappoint anybody with it that arrives without an appointment. And yeah.
And I guess, Darren, to that point, how do you keep the world's Uber whiskey tourists, the Germans, from just showing up at your door looking for a tour?
To be honest, we can't. we have signs, it's on the website that we're unfortunately not open to the public, and we do have signs and things outside, appointment only. But the funny thing about Germans, I guess, is they can speak pretty good English, but they can't read English, so they tend to just pass the signs and plead ignorance to the signs, which is fair enough. But we don't want to disappoint anybody, and that's ultimately the reason that we're not open. But yeah.
Do you have plans to like kind of expand the tourism aspect of it, or is this something you, like stick to the farming and the distilling and kind of want little to do with the rest?
The distillery is future proofed to have tours, to have a visitor centre. The ideas of having one are pretty fluid at the moment. There's some appetite for it, and then there's other ways that there's no appetite for it. So it's very fluid at the moment. I would like to think at some point we'll be open in some way, shape, or form, but whether it's a destination or anything like that, I don't know at this moment in time. The big problem is, or the reality for us is that the owner, Neil and Jen, they live on site with the family, and you can understand that they probably don't want people running about their back garden, if you like, and that's one of the main reasons. But there's others as well. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's still a working farm. I guess, when you go there, you notice that there's farm machinery, it's moving around. Like, it's still a working farm. And I think some other distilleries, I think tourism is great. It creates brand advocates, brand ambassadors for you. But then you run the risk that, does that tourism distract you from your main thing? And is it generating a return that covers its costs, or at least covers enough of them to justify it? And I think, you can look at even distilleries like Edwardauer, which used to be the most trafficked distillery in Scotland, and it's now shut down to the public. So,
yeah, no, definitely. There's pros and cons, I guess. I would say that it's more pros than cons, but you're absolutely right. Anything that comes through your doors leaves a brand ambassador at the end of the day. So these are the conversations that are taking place, and it's just about trying to find the right balance, I think, ultimately. But yeah, we're never ruling anything out, but at the moment we're okay where we're at.
mm-hmm. Sweet. Well, Sean, should we segue into the first whiskey? Darren, do you want to tell us about the Lochlea Barley?
Yeah, of course. So Lochlea Barley is our first pour expression. This one was one we worked really hard on, because we knew it was going to be the standard bearer, the workhorse of Lochlea. So we spent a bit of time working on the recipe. John, he spent a bit of time picking the cask, picking the right ratios, and yeah, in the end we ended up with 3 cask types in this. We've got bourbon, sherry, and STR, bottled at 46%, and for me a very, very sort of versatile whiskey. Not too complicated, so nice, easy going, and I think it does, it does Lochlea a lot of good service for me. I think it shows the right balance of the distillery and the cask we use. So yeah, we're very pleased with this one. Nice balance of sort of fruits, the Lochlea fruits, the apples, pears, bit of honey coming through as well, and almost like a sort of orangey kind of marmalade kind of feel about it as well. So
I love that creamy kind of clotted cream, almost lactic, not quite cheese, but almost there is really nice on the nose.
Yeah. It's very malty. It's got a nice funk to it too. It reminds me of like people making like crabapple jelly and like those apples after they've been sort of mashed down, starting to ferment a little bit.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's yeah, I think it's got a really nice balance about it, to be honest. And the spirit in this particular bottling will be probably 3.5, 4 years old.
Yeah.
So still fairly young.
As so do you have a heavy hand, like a hand in the master, like the blending part of it and to create the actual releases?
To be honest, we all do. I think that's one of the good things about Lochlea. We're a small team of about 13, 14 people. And once we've selected the casks, so probably from a production point of view, myself, John, George will be in the warehouse selecting the casks, nosing the casks, seeing what ones are going to make the cut. And then we'll put some, or John will put some recipes together, and we'll basically have a tasting panel as a team to see what's what and what, where we are. And that's been the case with all the whiskies to date. So it's a pretty good. I think the good thing about the team is that we've all got different opinions. We've all got different, as anybody has. Everybody's got different styles, different flavors, different preferences. Sorry, but I guess we always come to the same consensus in the end, which is always quite interesting.
Andy had a question in here too about the wine casks. He's asking with STR, what kind of red wine, or do you know what kind of red wine casks they were?
When we asked the question, we never know for sure, but when we asked the question, it's Rioja. It's the kind of the answer we get. We never know for sure, to be honest, Andy. Yeah. And in all honesty, it doesn't matter too much because it's rejuvenated.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I don't think the wine tends to have any particular influence on it.
Yeah. And is it typically like with the wine casks, are they always STR, or are you ever using like fresh barriques as well?
We do have fresh barriques. We have got a good selection of casks. We've got nothing we've put into. That's not true. Actually, we did a couple of single casks with authentic Australian Shiraz and Cabernet Sauvignon as well. We find red wines working particularly well with our spirit, and we're actually keen to explore that a bit more.
Yeah, and as you evolve, I would imagine that the seasonal releases that we've been seeing to date is kind of a path towards having older, what'll eventually be called core SKUs. But is our barley in some sense something that you think you'll have on an ongoing basis, because it's a celebration of not just whiskey that you've made, but whiskey where you've grown the barley and actually produced the spirit?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think, as I say, we're as a team, we're very proud of it. I think it represents Lochlea very well as a whiskey, and I think we may tweak it here and there as the spirit gets older, and yeah, there may be tweaks here and there, but we would like to think we'll keep our barley going as it is, to an extent, yeah. But I say we're really proud of it, and yeah, it does it's the workhorse, and it's a versatile whiskey as well, so it works in all sort of
And
ways.
do you notice a big difference in the spirit profile for our barley versus some of the other, like the malt that you're just flat out sourcing?
The spirit, so not really. We know that we know what we're looking for. I think what we try and do at Lochlea is we try and keep the spirit at the forefront of the whiskies. I like to think I think it's always good to be reminded what Lochlea is, and the fruits that are coming through, and we know a particular style. So we've got Lochlea's new make is orchard fruits. We've got apples, pear drops, some grassy notes coming through as well. So we're always looking for that in spirit. So and the mature whiskies as well. So it's we're always trying to remind ourselves of it.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, Sean, sowing, shall we move on?
Yeah, that was
Oh,
I do have to say that was a fantastic dram though. Absolutely. Like such a nice one to start off with. It was absolutely like up my alley stylistically. Yeah, really happy with that one.
What a nice minerality too.
Yeah, I sampled a few of these earlier on today, and that was I came up with that too. It was the spirit itself had a nice little minerality. It was a little poignant. It was nice. All right, yeah. So what's the next one is the Sowing Edition. Which I've got here to show y'all.
Yeah, so what we have now is the first release of our seasonals, or the first stage of the seasonal releases that we do at Lochlea. So because we grow our own barley, we try and we're releasing whiskies in conjunction with the growing seasons of the barley. So this one here is the first stage. This is sowing, so we're sowing the crop, and we try and match the flavour of the whiskey to the season as well. So, for instance, we sow the barley in the spring. So spring, you sort of fresh, vibrant sort of things going on. So we try and match spirit to that. So bourbon casks are perfect for that. So first fill bourbon, so 100% first fill bourbon, and again bottled at 46. And I think for me this one really does. If somebody asks me, or somebody says to me they want to try something that gives them as much Lochlea as they can, I think this is definitely the one, because the bourbon cask doesn't overpower. It's definitely spirit led, and the bourbon cask just adds that nice sort of sweetness, vanilla, creamy notes at the end. And I think certainly this is the second crop, so this is the second version of this. I think it's just a stage above the last one. And we're particularly pleased with this. So in terms of where we're at with distillery just now, so we are sowing the barley. Albeit very late for us, so we ended up sowing the barley into the ground, and I think it was the end of April. We had a really bad spell of wet weather here in Scotland, even worse than it normally is, and it rained non-stop for about a month. So we can't cultivate the soil, we can't and we can't sow the seeds. So for us, we were a bit late. Hopefully that doesn't affect the yield at the end of the year when we come to harvest. But yeah, that's where we're at this stage. So we're sowing the crop, and now we're tasting the associated whiskey with it.
Yeah, I really like this clean profile. it again shows that minerality, shows some nice notes from the barley. It also shows some of the natural fruit aromas that are coming out and flavors coming out from the distillation and fermentation.
Yeah, definitely. And sorry.
I get a little less creaminess on this one, but it definitely has a little bit more of a yeasty, slightly more, yeah, like that fresh fermenty profile. I'm really digging.
Yeah.
Honestly, on the palate too, like the slight elevation to 48% also kind of shows through in a really interesting way. Wait, no, I think it's 48, is it? Or
This one, John, that's an interesting point. This one's 46.
oh,
The
that's weird.
first crop's 48.
Oh, okay, then disregard.
But I think it's a good point because we always wanted to release all our whiskies bar Cask Strength and 46. But when the first crop came around, we tried to dial it to 46. It went flat, really flat. There was plenty of fruit. It was nice, but it was just no reminder that you're drinking alcohol. So there was no kick. There was no punch. So it was fairly flat. So we took the decision just to increase it to 48, and the first crop definitely made a difference with that. With the spirit being a bit older and a bit, having that extra year, I guess the 46 worked perfectly. But yeah, no, it's an interesting point you brought up.
The palate's evolving nicely. It's got a nice kind of waxiness to it, like a little bit of like a sort of a faded strawberry Twizzlers note, but some really nice citrus tones in there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Jeff here in the chat had a question saying, like, he said, from a farming perspective, wouldn't the order make more sense going plow, sow, harvest, barley?
I was hoping nobody would pick it up, and I was thinking about that today actually, and I was thinking, technically speaking, ploughing is first. However, we do tend to do the ploughing in the winter or when the ground are light. So yes, absolutely, technically right, but we're going for stage one as sowing.
Yeah. I think it's lovely. I think that's going to be something cool to watch. Like, and as with a lot of new distilleries, I think part of the storyline here is that you're moving towards something. Like, this is not the end goal for Lochlea. This is, maybe not even fair to say the midpoint, but it's part of the way along the journey. And I can't wait to see what, oxidation and 5-6 years more maturation does to something like that particular whiskey, because I think it'll really shine in time. It's got a lot of promise.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I don't know when it's expected over there, but the third crop is available for the sowing. So we released that a few months ago in the UK. So it must be on its way to use. But when we were trying all the casks for the new batch, it was interesting because the casks that we had put aside that we didn't think were good enough, like a year ago or a year previous, I just went to a different level, and some of the sort of dry notes that we picked up, I just converted into really good fruity characters. It's really interesting to see the progress.
I actually have one more question before we move on to the next one too, because I bring it up mostly just because I was getting so much of a fermenty kind of tone on this whiskey. I've read that you guys are doing 2 fermentation times. Are you marrying those together for bottlings, or is there a reason why you're picking 2?
The 2 is just a natural. It's just natural for us because we work 5 days, so Monday to Friday, and we don't work over the weekend. So The fermentations are basically, we have two short fermentations. So, for instance, they will be distilled, or they will be mashed on the Monday, Tuesday, and then distilled on the Thursday, Friday. So they're the two short ones. So they're about 66 hours. And then we'll have 3 long fermentations. So you'll have the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday mashes, which will be distilled the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so our production weeks. So they ferment over the weekend. So they're about 116 hours. But yes, they get married together in the vat. We have separated them on occasions just to see alike. I think the longer fermentations are definitely more fruity, whereas the shorter fermentations are a lot more grassy notes coming through. So there's definitely differences.
Interesting that it's not like stylistically, it's out of necessity. I mean, it's kind of, I guess historically that would be how it would be done anyways. You just do what you can when you can. But yeah, I mean, if the result is, beautiful, like it has been, at least thus far in the tasting, I'm glad it works out. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the reality of a lot of other distilleries, fermentation times were changed, quietly. A lot of distilleries in the 2000s and 2010s shortened their fermentation times and started running 24 hours so that they could get as much production done as possible. And seems that might have been on an industry-wide basis, maybe overshooting the mark a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think it's nice to know that there is some conscious thought going into it rather than just how do we make simply as much spirit as we can in as short a period as possible.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a case for Lochlea, and being a family-owned independent distillery, we're definitely about quality over quantity. That's definitely for sure. And one of the bonuses with John coming on board was we definitely dialed into the process more. We dialed into the fermentations. We dialed into the cut points and the way we're running the stills. So everything matters for a quality point of view. And it's definitely not about quantity, although quantity helps, but it's certainly not.
All right.
All right. Well, yeah.
Harvest.
Let's follow along to the next one.
I guess this follows a logical order too. You have to harvest what you've sowed. So, and then I suppose fallow. I guess the only thing we're skipping is the ploughing. We've got the ploughing out of order, but we're going by flavor profile here.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, harvest. This again matching sort of seasons with the spirit. So in the summer we're harvesting, so typically around August time, when we get a nice sort of break in the weather, when it's sort of warm, we'll get harvesting. And yeah, again, we chose the casks that would give us them sort of summer fruits, summer flavors. So for this one in particular, we went for we had 50% port casks. The port casks were sorry, I'll start again. 50% port casks, but they were re-racked with from refill bourbons. So they'd spent 3 years in refill bourbons and then re-racked into port casks for 18 months. And then we've got first fill bourbons and STR casks again. And I think for this one, certainly in those, you get the sort of strawberry jam almost, the sort of berries, and then the sort of pepperiness as well. It's a nice, easy going dram, I think, this one.
That, while people are tasting it, that makes me kind of think about stylistically for whiskey that you're bottling now versus whiskey that you're planning to bottle in the future. Is there a different thought process in terms of how you put those together? And the reason I ask that is, and as much as I like the, or the Sowing Edition, which was like the last one, which was rather naked, for, 3 to 5, 6-year-old whiskeys, consumers might appreciate things more like this, or the Fallow Edition that follows, where you've got a much bigger impact from the cask, to kind of, and I don't mean to mask the youth, but to kind of add character. So is that a thought when, like, for the range that you have now versus what you're thinking of doing, or what the end goal is, I guess, down the line?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think we're a young whiskey. We can't do anything about that. So naturally, we have to use cask to our advantage. We have to use cask to smooth some edges, and as you say, not mask, but certainly, you're right. I mean, when we've done sort of tastings or festivals and things like that, Sowing definitely splits people down the middle. You tend to find the whiskey enthusiasts tend to veer on the Sowing side, whereas other consumers tend to go for the Fallow or the Harvest, as you say, the ones with the sort of bulkier cask makeup, if you like. And it's definitely our thinking, it's definitely our thought process.
Mm-hmm.
But with the strategy will change for us fairly soon, because the third crop of the Sowing was the last of the seasonal ranges, so that won't be an ongoing thing. What the next stage is, we don't know yet, but we think that at this point that's run its course. So the strategy will change, but at this point in time, I don't know what.
Oh, sorry. So just to clarify, you said, like, so the way that it's set up with the stages of plant like harvesting and whatnot, that's, as of now, that's run its course, or with just a specific bottling?
There'll be three of each. So there'll be three
Gotcha.
Sowing, harvest, 3 Fallow, and 3 Ploughing, and then that's the end of the seasonal ranges as we know it.
That's neat. Yeah, interesting. It's cool that, yeah, I guess, especially being a brand that's relatively new to the market. I mean, I suppose it's a little surprising to, like, see things suddenly change after only 3, but I mean, I'm sure you guys have no shortage of creativity on your team. I'm sure something really cool is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, no, totally, Sean. I think for us, I think the seasonals was a good chance for us to showcase Lochlea in different cask types. And yeah, I think we're listening to consumers, we're listening to shops, to liquor stores and things like that. We're listening to our customers constantly, and we maybe just feel that it's run its course now, and it was always going to run its course, but yeah, the strategy will change, and as you say, there's no shortage of creativity, and we'll have something exciting, that's for sure.
There was a comment in the chat too that just kind of, like, it prompts me, because I gotta ask too. Have you guys been, like, have you sold casks or spirit to anyone so far?
So other than private individuals, not yet, but we are in discussions with some independent bottlers.
That's fair, yeah. Especially with the, like, after having those first 2, like, I mean, they're up my alley for sure. And I think Edge might be able to speak to it as well. Like, there's times where there's things that we taste that, like, I want a bottle, but can I sell that? I was like, it's tough to say. I think we probably could with the right thing, but those are the kinds of casks that or tastes that I wish I could have on the shelf with their name on it, for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure with independent bottlings, the tricky thing is, you want a relationship that's going to be symbiotic, that's not going to be, and I think a lot of distilleries are very careful about this, because they don't just want anything under the sun bottled. Whatever it is, they want it to still reflect the brand as they want it to be seen. And so, yeah, I can see how that, and it's a way of getting the word out. I mean, there's certainly bottlers like the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society comes to mind, where there's a lot of respect on that, because it's not about trying to trade on your name. It's trying to highlight interesting whiskeys that happen to be from a distillery that you can figure out if you really want to know. And you know, there's others out there too, but yeah, I mean, we see a lot of this. There's also a lot of opportunistic independent bottlings where the whiskeys are average at best, and everybody's bottling the same things, and it's white noise.
Yeah, absolutely. So you guys will know as well as anybody the amount of independent bottlers that are out there. So yeah, the key is just working with the right people, and yeah, we're taking our time with it, that's for sure. And yeah, we'll definitely work with the people we're confident they'll release good Lochlea whiskey. Because as you say, we want to keep control of it.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, let's keep it flowing to the Fallow Edition then. So number 4 in the lineup, if anyone's having trouble keeping track, and we're only 4 in, but you never know. Some people might have been pre-gaming. Okay, I'll share the screen so you can see it here. This guy's currently out of stock in the store, unfortunately, but I think actually I'd have to check. I'm not sure if we can get more of that.
Andy's on the chat. He'll let us know if it's still available. But if it is, we'll certainly bring it in, or it might be that we have to wait for the next edition.
I have to point out, like, between this one and the last one, the dark spirit in those bottles, that shaped bottle, looks so awesome. Like, even though I think I like the first two better than I would like the last one, it looks just so much better with the dark spirit.
Yeah, no, it definitely catches people's eye. I mean, it's one that sells pretty good in the UK for sure. When we're doing tastings and festivals, it's definitely one that people go after quite quickly. So this one here is Lochlea Fallow Edition. So after we've harvested the crop, we then, well, once we've rounded up the straw, we'll then leave the land fallow. So we leave it to rest. There's a couple of things we do. Also, we plant sort of grazing crops. So things like radishes and mustard seed and things like that will go in the land, and then we'll allow sheep on to graze, and you know, these things sort of help replenish the goodness in the soil, ready for us to cultivate or to plough. So fallow, and typically the autumn, it's an autumn release. So again, going in line with the seasons, we're matching it to the autumnal season. So the darkness, the sherry, 100% sherry matured. So in this one, we've got 55% PX sherry butts and 45% Oloroso sherry butts. And as you can probably tell with the colour as well, they're particularly wet, active casks. So this one is definitely rich, full-bodied, and you know, sort of rich honey, almost chocolatey, and sort of coffee notes as well coming through. But definitely a crowd pleaser. Not one, I have to say, that shows off Lochlea's spirit particularly well, but that's, you know, to be expected from sherry casks. They do.
But this also, I think we could look at as being something of a crowd pleaser as far as drams go, and something that's easy for people to wrap their heads around, even if it is on the young side of things. And that's because that sherry is going to sort of buttress the flavor profile and everything that's there. And but you're right, I think it does. The downside is that it does hide a little bit of, like, this. It would be hard to pick this whiskey out in a blind tasting as being Lochlea. It's not to say it's not good, but I mean, that's true of a lot of things matured in sherry.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. But yeah, definitely a crowd pleaser. And yeah, it's definitely draws a lot of people to with the color. So
Even on the palate and the nose, like yeah, you're right. It's so rich. It's so much more rich than the previous. It's a lot more I don't know, a little bit more fruit, a lot more fruit driven, a lot less. Even the last one, I think maybe it was the port. It's possible that it was the port that was in there. It was just a little bit winey, which not a bad thing necessarily. But this one much more full, much more deep, fruity, a little bit more what you would expect when it says something sherry.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, it does it. It smooths a lot of edges in the spirit, and yeah, it's what it is. It's a sherry. It's a sherry bomb, if you like. Or certainly ticks the box. That's for sure.
Yeah, and per Andy's note, that Lochlea will be back in stock. We'll have it back in store May 5th. So take a look for it on, sorry, not May 5th, June 5th. What am I talking about? June. It's already May 24th. We're not going to have it back in the past. We had it in the past. We'll have it again in the future. Yeah, I think it drinks really well. What I like about it for a young, like fairly heavily sherried whiskeys, there's no off notes in there. I mean, sometimes with these, I find like the sherry can be a little goopy, or occasionally like people have got bad sherry casks. You don't see this as much anymore, and you've got that sulfur taint being a bit of an issue. But yeah, this is great. This has got a nice balance to it.
Even the term goopy is not necessarily bad, depending. I think as it gets to like older whiskey that has some of those qualities, or at least in that, maybe up to 20-ish kind of thing, it's like almost desirable. But this, like, it's I don't know. I guess it defies it. I don't know how to say it. Like it doesn't show that like a youthful spirit. Like it definitely adds some layers of maturity to it. That's actually quite lovely.
And Sean, I was gonna say I like dumpy. I'm not like goopy. I'm not a fan of. So like dumpy is that sort of thick, chewy sherry. Goopy is where you can. It kind of just feels like someone like layered it on top. Like, and it's just it doesn't meld with the spirit. But no, this is, and that's at an older age. But this works really nicely. And Darren, I have to ask, and this would make perfect sense, but do I recognize that bookshelf behind you? Are you actually at the distillery tonight?
I'm not actually. I'm at home tonight.
That looks like one of the bookcases, I think, in the hallway in the distillery.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I didn't. I didn't want to rock up to the distillery at this ungodly hour.
At midnight. We have to hope it's not haunted yet. It's not a very old distillery, so.
No. Old buildings, but not old.
Cool. Sean?
Yeah. No, I had nothing. I was gonna continue on to the number 5, I think, which I was kind of looking forward. So I have to say as well, like this is probably my first. This is my first time kind of going through the range of Lochlea. Maybe I'll put Andy on the spot, but maybe sometimes when he comes in the store, like all the other whiskey guys get to like go to him and see what he's doing, and sometimes I'm just kind of on the floor doing whatever. But I haven't really had like a huge opportunity to really taste through all of these. First of all, at once, yeah. I've tried a few here and there, like sporadically. It's also hard to get like, well, obviously you can't really nail down the profile when you do that, right? So it's nice to see one after another, seeing any kind of threads of similarity, see just like or even just the threads of quality. This one specifically, I was kind of looking forward to as well, just because I don't think you've done anything. I think you're going to be doing peated, but I don't think you have released anything. Is that what I read, or I could be wrong on that one?
Yeah, so that merges nicely into the next round, into the ploughing. So Lochlea is completely unpeated. So we grow our own barley. We currently don't malt our barley yet, although we do in some we're doing very small scales, floor malting trials. You may have seen on social media and things like that. We do about a week's worth. And it's very, as you can imagine, very labour intensive. But no, Barley is sent away to a company called Baird's. They're just outside Edinburgh, and they malt the barley, and it's all unpeated. It comes back to us. You may be surprised to know that with John, ex-Lochlea Distillery manager, being on the team, we don't really have any desire to do peated malt at the moment. Never say never, but you know, it's very hard to. It takes a lot of commitment to, as an unpeated distillery, to go to do peated spirit, because your malt bins, you know, the dust, you know, the flavour lasts forever, really, or for a long time anyway. So it takes a long time to get rid of. So you really need to commit to it. It's not something you can really do in a small batch or something. It needs to be a good few weeks run. So no immediate desire to do peated malt, but to showcase Lochlea in a peated character or peated sense, we did buy some peated barrels, so ex Lochlea barrels. Again, nothing to do with John, actually. These arrived before he came along, but yeah, the barrels are, you know, they come over. We fill them with unpeated spirit, and the Ploughing Edition, again, we're matching the season to the spirit, or the spirit of the season. So in the winter, you're looking at something warmed up. You're looking for a nice peated or a warming dram, and so we feel this is perfect for the winter. Hence why it's the fifth dram of the fifth release of the season. It's not the first, as it should be, but yeah. So peated barrels, you don't, especially with this one, it's not apparent on the nose necessarily. It's not apparent when you first, it opens up slightly, you do get it, but it's not overly apparent. It doesn't hit you in the face like a Kalila or a Lagavulin or something would, or Alfroig.
I mean, it does betray a bit of smoke, and it also betrays a little bit of salt on the nose. But you're right, it's not really till the palate where you start to see that, and you get this like seaweed cracker like brininess and this nice little hint of both smoke and peat. You know, going back to your comment about the hassle of producing peated malt, I mean, I hadn't really thought of it in this light because there's a lot of distilleries that will do peated runs, but the one that comes to mind is Clynelish. And when Clynelish years ago did this major cleanup and, you know, replaced some equipment, and they lost that trademark waxy profile that Clynelish is famous for. And after a great deal of like trial and error, they got it back and they figured out what it was. And it was a buildup of what they refer to technically as gunk in their spirits receiver. And it was the cleaning out of that piece of equipment that dramatically changed the profile of their spirit. And it's an interesting thought, because with yourselves, it would be, you know, it would be a hassle. You run some peated malt through, then you have to clean everything out. But then by cleaning everything out, do you change your spirit profile? Because maybe you're cleaning something like the spirits receiver that doesn't normally get cleaned, and there's some magical thing happening in there that no one fully understands, that's now going to change how your whiskey tastes down the road.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and it's not. I guess it is something we think about, because we at the distillery, probably when in your photo or your slides earlier on, Andy, we could see the wooden washbacks.
Yeah.
We just steam the washbacks to sanitize them. So when they're empty and before they're filled again, we just put steam into them for 15 minutes each time. So no chemicals, no water, none is used to clean these washbacks. Because we feel that over time we're sort of gathering some of our own, or developing its own flora and fauna in the woods. So we, you know, it's up for debate, I guess, but we certainly believe it does add to it. So well, that's one of the reasons we don't clean washbacks with any sort of chemicals or anything. But yeah, it's an interesting point, as you say, about the spirit receivers. Sure.
I'm glad you. That was the exact question I had too. But I also to add on to that too, is that the dominant reason to not like when you say you have to commit to more than just a little bit of a peated run? Is that the main? Is something like that the main reason, or is it also something like because you're sending your barley out, it's going to be done in such a large batch that that's mostly what you're like. That's you have to commit to a large amount because that's what's being dried over the
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So the way that it works for us is and again, one of Andy's slides showed the grain shed. You can see the big piles of barley in the grain shed. So that sits there as barley until we send it away. We send it away in batches of about 170 tons at a time. We malted. So that's about, that's a good few months, barley. So yeah, again, it would be a huge commitment to put all that out for peated, because they would obviously have to peat full 170 tons.
Mm-hmm.
So two big reasons for not doing it. But there's other things we could do. We could small batch peat. We could find somewhere we can small batch malt the barley with peat, but just.
Well, I think the other part to this too is, I mean, you to an extent you do have to respect if the distillery's got a vision to be something, and it's not going to just go off in directions that maybe some people might perceive as being a fad or a distraction from what the core vision is. There are a lot of distilleries that operate that way. So I mean, it's cool to try it in a peated cask. I think it works well. I like it the Sowing Edition. It's a very naked Lochlea, so you can see some of the spirit. It's got this sort of like faint yogurty funk to it, maybe a little hint of that longer fermentation element in there, and it's fresh, malty, fruity, and just it shows a ton of promise of what this could be in another 4 or 5 years time.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say, sorry, Sean. I was just going to say it's a good balance of distillery and cask again. Sweetness from the distillery and the peatiness. It's a good balance, I think.
I show the photo of the webpage of crop 1, just so everybody knows. The photo of crop 2, it doesn't have a photo. It's not properly updated. It's the price on that one is on number 2 is actually 87. Just in case anyone's gonna hold me to when you showed me, I wanted that price. But yeah, number 2, different price, different product.
Yeah, cool. Shall we move on to the Cask Strength? This was, and I have to say, this was a pleasant. We weren't expecting this one. This was kind of a different direction. So kind of curious to see this one.
For any.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Just before we taste it too, for anyone who might have just missed the notice or anything like that, the original lineup was saying that the 5-year was to be tasted now, but we've changed that around. So we're doing the cask strength now and the 5-year at the end. Just so everyone knows.
Yeah. So the cask strength is one of the whiskies that it doesn't reference the fact that we grow no barley, I guess. So I think there's always a demand for cask strength whiskey wherever you go. So it was always in the plan, just how we did it and where it sort of slotted in. So it was last year we decided to go with it. This is batch 1, and this has been matured in. So we've got 69% first fill bourbon and 31% sherry hogsheads. So and for me, sorry.
I'm just going to quickly say it's got a really nice profile on the nose. That balance of
Yeah.
bourbon and sherry is bang on.
Yeah. So this is bottled at 60.1%. And for me, I think it's probably my favourite in the range. I have to say, if I was, forced to choose one of the range, I'd go Cask Strength. I think it just it's Lochlea on steroids, I guess. It's just the flavours of our barley, but just enhanced. You've got the spicy, fruity, still with that orangey kind of candied orange kind of feel about it, and nose of tobacco as well for me. But, yeah.
Yeah, definitely nice tobacco notes on there. Holy. Yeah, 60.1 though, after all those 46ers, it's definitely a bit of a punch in the mouth.
Yeah, so we step up. But I don't think it drinks like 60.1. It certainly reminds you that you're drinking Cask Strength whiskey, don't get me wrong, but it's not. I think it's fairly easy going for a Cask Strength. And maybe the casks have chosen for that, but
I think after a while too, like if you have it long enough, that becomes more of a textural component to the overall whiskey anyways, and you don't think about it quite as much after the second or third sip.
Yeah.
I love you can still get the spirit in this. There's a nice maltiness to it. Some of those like light cheesy funk notes are still there. There's some fruit. And then you've got the nice creamy velvety backbone of vanilla from the American oak and this nice chocolate leather, tobacco, spice, sherry profile creeping in there too. Works really well.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the whiskies that's selling well, and you can see why quite easily.
One more question I had, like when I was so you're using all your own farmed barley, you're setting it up to be malted. I guess I don't know what your output is. It's not like too huge, but you must have access as well that you sell off as part of the business, or are you just using everything all self-contained?
So everything's just used. Do you mean the barley?
Yeah.
So we grow about 600. We'll end up yielding about 600 tons of barley in a harvest, in an ideal harvest. That'll translate to about 400 tons of malt, because obviously you'll lose from moisture and screening. So that'll translate roughly about 400 tons. And that'll do us for the year. There will be excess, not a huge amount, but there will be, and that'll just get mixed in, to be honest, for the next, to the next batch, to the next harvest. Because it's all stable, it's all dried, it's not going to go off or grow or anything like that. So
yeah. So 100% of your production, I guess that's something that we should clarify. 100% of your production is your own barley, which there's not a lot of distilleries. In fact, I can only think of one other distillery where that's the case, and it's Daphne. So,
and they sell most of that, don't they?
Well, but they also produce about a tenth of, or less than what. Like, what's your spirit production in theory?
Our output's about 185,000 litres.
So you're roughly producing about 6 times as much spirit as Daphne, which is a one-man show. I mean, if you've ever been there, it's fascinating. It's a very interesting distillery, but it's a one-man show. I saw his daughter pushing casks around the last time I was there, but there's no other help. So that's all he's got.
Yeah, it's a unique distillery, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Sean, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, like for even being, I think you said something like 30-something% for sherry on this. Like even for that, it seems like there's so much vanilla bean that comes off it. It's so crazy. It's like it on the nose for me, it just screams like it's North American vanilla pudding, not UK pudding, like breads and whatnot. Different kind of pudding.
Like tapioca kind of thing, or like
kind of
like the Jello pudding.
Yeah, pretty much the Jello pudding. Yeah, totally.
Jello pudding. Uh, well, I mean, but Sean, that makes sense. I mean, most, you've got mostly bourbon. There is sherry, but I have to assume like a good chunk of that sherry is going to be American oak seasoned sherry casks as well. So you're still
Yeah,
going to get
totally.
the illness from that too. But yeah, it's a very nice balance that ratio I think works really well.
Yeah, it definitely does. And we've actually just so there'll be a batch two as well that I think we're launching in the UK next month. So that will be coming soon. It's a different cask makeup as well. So there's no bourbon this time. It's sherry and SDR.
Well, yeah.
Do you think there'll be like, do you think that'll extend past 3 batches with that too? Or are you gonna like, no more cask strength?
No, I think it'll always be a cask strength. I think it has to be there's a demand for cask strength whiskey, so
That's
it
a
has to be there.
yeah, it's a classic, whether you do a cask strength, batch strength, whatever what you call it. Every distillery should have a high proof bottling. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
just don't
I
try
think
to.
it just showcases. I think it just showcases what the spirit is natural quality and its natural strength. So
Mhm. Absolutely. Just don't try to pull a classic cut over people's eyes. Books. All right, Lochlea 5 year, which I mean, I tried a bottle of this. Andy brought it in. I wrote a tasting note on it, and it's a shame because this is I was blown away by it. It was I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I mean, Darren, I'm a spoiled whiskey expert consumer. I get to try ridiculous stuff, and it takes a lot to get me excited about young expressions. But when I tried that 5 year old, I was blown away. And when Sean texted me this afternoon, I was a little bit gutted because having tried it before and knowing how good it was, I was just kind of felt sad that we hadn't caught it and that we weren't going to be showing it at its best today. But there you have it.
I,
I mean, it's blown off a bit. It's not as bad as it was.
I have to say, I'm surprised that it wasn't caught sooner. So, there's I think 2 or 3 people had showed up a little like just after we talked about everything. For anyone who doesn't know, I was going through the whiskeys a little earlier today just to kind of revisit, and the bottle of the 5 year is unfortunately corked, so tainted with some. You don't know, it's a bacteria that's sometimes exists in natural cork that can release a compound abbreviated to TCA. I'm not going to go into technical details, but it kind of smells like wet cardboard, maybe dog, or just kind of just staley grossness. I don't know how it was missed when we poured it, because literally I opened the bottle and I could get it immediately. The cork was way worse than the actual spirit, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't tasted this after sitting in the glass for an hour now.
It's still drinkable. So don't be like, and on like the thing about corked whiskey is I've seen a spectrum of this over the years, from like unfortunate to like not great to completely undrinkable. To there was one bottle of Signatory we opened once. Sean, I don't know if you were working for the store at the time, but we opened it, like a customer brought it in, and we opened the bottle, and the act of removing the cork like contaminated the air in the tasting room for like an hour. I've only seen that once. It was unbelievable. But I mean, this is on the mild side of things. I did just put a link in there. This is an article, kind of a cool one, on scotchwhiskey.com from back when that was a thing about corked whiskey. It happens. If you're buy a bottle from us and you think it's flawed, you can bring it in. And if we agree with you, we're happy to take it back. It doesn't happen very often. But it happens. And this
It
is, I
does
think,
happen.
the second time in 3 years on a virtual tasting where we had a corked whiskey.
The unfortunate part is that because it also happens so seldomly, if you're not a wine drinker, you may have never been exposed to it, and you might not even know what it is. So it's also kind of neat to take this as maybe, well, since we don't have another one to compare it to, unfortunately, like if you guys are interested, I mean, like maybe put it back in the sample bottle if you're not going to drink it all and seal it up as a sample, and maybe you can compare it to something else at some point to
Well,
more closely.
when we get them another sample, which we will.
Yeah. We'll get another bottle of the Lochlea 5, and then we can get you a sample of the real one. That actually might be a really fun experiment for you guys to just kind of do on your own. But I mean, yeah, like I said, not everybody knows what it's like, so it's just going to be kind of, I don't know, you might not know to bring it back. I was going to ask Andrew, though, was that the time with the signatory about it? Was that Brian bringing it back from Divino back in like 8 years ago, or?
There was a time, I think, even before that, but there was another time where I also made the mistake of something was really bad and I decided I would try it as well. And that might be the Divino bottle. And it like ruined my palate for like a couple days. Like it was just, so it can happen. It's unfortunate. I did, and I'm going to put the link up here. People don't want me to read this out. I did write up a tasting note on this when Andy brought it by. It's on our
I can share the screen here. I got it.
Well, you don't have to, but I mean, the point is, I mean, you can still get a sense of it. And I don't think that this is I don't want to dwell on this too much longer, that this is so off, but it's a gorgeous whiskey. And yeah, it's just too bad.
Yeah, you're right. It's not really that bad. Like in terms of corkage, like it's actually, you do get a sense of kind of how nice the whiskey is underneath everything.
I think where you get it though is especially on the finish, and it's kind of like what I imagine if you had some cardboard boxes in a basement that got flooded by a river. It's what those boxes would taste like a day or two later, like muddy, musty, and like wet, papery. Just not tremendous. But we'll sort this out. Darren, instead of having us go on about this, why don't you tell us about the 5-year and like the profile that you guys went for in this whiskey? And this is the first one we've seen an age statement on, and I love the way the bottle looks too.
Yeah, so this one was actually sprung on us very, I wouldn't say last minute, but it wasn't part of the original plan. But we felt we wanted to do something for us turning 5. So there was all sorts of suggestions thrown about, like open days or things like that, or special bottlings, and out of them ideas was born the 5-year-old, and from there we just started to build on that. And so what we decided to do, and the reason it's so limited really, is because we chose 5 casks, 5 barrels, 5 years old, and 2 of the barrels we wanted more, but they just weren't ready. But we wanted barrels from the original first ever filling, so we filled, I think, 30 barrels were filled on the 19th of August 2018, and we wanted 5 casks from that filling, but it just didn't. They just weren't there. So we managed to get 2 bourbons from the very first filling, and from there we then took 3 sherry casks, 2, I believe, there's a PX, double matured PX, a first fill Oloroso, and a double matured Oloroso, all 5 years old and bottled at 50% ABV. So I think it was limited to 2,000 bottles worldwide. So it was super rare, to the point we, as staff, didn't even really get access to it. So yeah, it was a out of the blue kind of bottling, but I think it's worked pretty well. The label is all different to the normal releases. The packaging. Show you. So it comes in a sort of box like that. So the packaging is all different. So yeah, we've took a lot of time with it, and we wanted to do special for our 5 year anniversary. And yeah, I think it is. I think it's definitely the best spirit we've produced, or the best whiskey we've produced so far. The 5 year old definitely makes a difference. I think it's 5 year old spirits just came on leaps and bounds, you know, from tasting the whiskies at 3 years old. So yeah, it's definitely one that yeah, it's talking about the inside of the lid as well. It can maybe just about show you that. I don't know if you can see. So inside of the lid, you've got the casks. Here is all the different casks that are in there, and it references what the cask brings to the spirit. So we've got the first fill of Rosso Sherry, which brings a sort of silky sweet note. One of the two bourbons, you know, brings sort of lively and honeyed characters, vanilla. And then you've got the two double mature. So we've got a double mature PX, and that brings a sort of viscosity. And a double matured Oloroso, which gives it that kind of fresh and floral. Yeah, there's the package in there on the screen. I think it.
Very, very cool. Sean, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just agree. Yeah, very cool. Like super. Yeah, very cool.
I mean, I think the funny thing is, I think most people could probably drink this and might not even notice. But it's a lovely balling. So Darren, here's what we like to do. We do what we call the speed round, and we're going to go back through because we like to see how the whiskeys evolve in the glass over the course of the tasting, and then we're going to trigger a vote. So we're going to try to do that pretty quickly here because we're sensitive to the fact that it's now 1:17 in the morning for you, and we do appreciate you being a trooper and staying up late with us. So Sean and Darren, if you want to chime in on this, please do as well. We're going to go back and quickly just reference each of the whiskeys to see how they've changed, and then we're going to fire up the poll. So Sean, our barley?
I found that slight lactic note kind of blew off a little bit, but still just, you know, beautiful citric fruit underneath everything. Yeah. It's still awesome.
The palate, it's juicy, malty, that minerality is still there, a little nuttiness as well, and some fruit, like all around, it's a nice package dram. Sowing?
Still that nice, like kind of lemon meringue pie on the nose. Palate's so a little bit more, it's just more barley for a lot of the fruits of, I think, on the palate maybe faded away, but still pretty excellent and spirity.
Barley, toasted oak, spices. I mean, for me, the fruits are still there. They're kind of faint. But it's very, very fresh still and pleasant. Harvest. Oh.
Yeah, ripe strawberry on the nose, like.
Yeah.
Actually translates very similarly on the palate. Maybe like preserved strawberry, like.
Yeah. Well, and it's still got that, like, I don't know, it's not quite Twizzlers, but like those shoelaces, kind of red shoelace candies. And yeah, there's something that reminds me actually of like old Gouda and honeycomb on the palate.
Cool. Very cool note.
Fallow?
Fallow's maintains a bit of a leatheriness on the nose for me. Like old polished leather.
Yep.
And kind of sticks with that dried, fruity, slight richness. It doesn't taste as full. I think that the alcohol, that whatever alcohol is kind of blown off in the glass, is kind of left it a bit more. I don't know. Well, it's less volatile overall.
Rich, spicy, leather, chocolate, tobacco. I mean, this has kind of held its own quite well. Nice dark chocolate tones in it. As we said, the spirit's not as apparent, but what's there is great. I think that's people who like sherried whiskeys, that's a no-brainer. Ploughing. Oh.
When I first smelled it, there's a slight bit of that farmy note on it. Now it's not quite there as much. but it's still, I don't know. I still get a lot of phenols on there, even if it's not outright smoke.
So the nose, smoked Gouda and mezcal, like a faint touch of mezcal in there. The palate, malt, cheese, smoke, and like these faded pears. You know when they like cut them really thin and then they poach them, like that with a little bit of like a blue cheese or something.
Oh, blue cheese is a cool note on there for sure. You know what? Like I didn't say this when we first tasted through this, but like I love when non-peated spirit is matured in peated barrels. So one of my favorite ways of imbuing spirit with peat. But it's you guys said there was like not that it wasn't as present on here. I'm finding it more present on here than on any other example of that style.
I I think it works well. I mean, the only other ones that I really liked, to your point, Sean, about that, because I agree, I actually like that matured and peated casks. If you remember those old like 89 and 1990 Pultneys,
I
were just
love those.
crazy. This could be like that, and like this would go tropical like that, and like I hope you have stuff, Darren, that's going to be in this cask for 20, 25 years, because it's going to be like those old like 89 and 90 Pultneys in 15 to 20 years.
Mhm. Yeah, no, it's plenty of it. And Andy,
That's good to hear.
Nice.
Cask Strength, Sean.
I don't have much left. I don't have much left of this one, to be honest.
That's probably a good sign.
I think personally, I think this one's the one that opens up the best. Given time, I think it just, yeah, just enhances itself just
Yeah,
a bit
it's
more.
pretty warm like toasted brioche on the palate for me. It still screams a little bit more bourbon than it does sherry.
Yeah. Sean, do you remember those like chocolate chip brioche loaves that Crystal used to get?
Totally.
When I used to take those home, and I would make the girls French toast with them with a lot of butter. That reminds me of making French toast with those, with a little side of bacon, with those chocolate brioche loaves.
So good.
All right, 5 year.
Honestly, the nose, it's so imperceptible on the nose. The nose is so beautiful on this still. Like,
I agree. The nose is great. The palate, it kind of creeps in there, which is too bad, but you can see what it was underneath that. And yeah, as we said, we are going to get everyone a fresh sample of this one. So I'm going to fire up the poll here. So everybody gets to vote for their two favorite whiskeys. While they're doing that, now, Darren, Sean, and I are going to tell people our favorites. We don't get a vote. And because you're one of the co-hosts, you don't either, but we're going to let you verbally. And I know it's hard to choose from amongst all the many things that you've helped to create. But if you had to pick three from tonight's lineup, what would they be?
Cask Strength, Sour Barley, and for me, Sowing.
Okay.
I just love the ballad. I just love getting. I just tasting Lochlea, and the balance is great, I think.
Awesome. Sean, how about yourself? What were your three favorites?
oh, I get three. Okay, sweet. Because I always try to sneak in three, anyways. I would say number one is I'm gonna follow suit. I'm gonna say in order. Number one is Sowing. Number two is Cask Strength, and number three is Our Barley.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna go in a slightly different direction on this. I'm gonna go partly because of the drinking aspect. Cask Strength is my favorite in tonight's lineup. My second is Ploughing, partly, I would say primarily because I can see the direction that's going and I really like what I see there. And then the same thing with Sowing. Darren, I can't wait to see what your whiskey tastes like after 10 years in just ex-bourbon.
Mhm.
Nothing else, just clean ex-bourbon.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be gorgeous. Not that it's not great now, but I see what it can be with the magic of time, and
Yeah.
those naked ones get me really excited.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree, Andy. It's we're far from the finished article. We know that. So yeah.
Cool. All right. So here are the results. Cask Strength looks like it won by a decent margin. 5-year and everything else except Fallow got a vote first round, second round. Everything that didn't get a vote before got one, and the Cask Strength still looks like it's charging to the front, but the Sowing's got a really strong showing there too. I realized I wasn't sharing that, so there you go. I'll share it for you. I don't know if anyone's got any comments or questions they want to quickly ask before we let Darren go and let him get started with tomorrow or end today, whichever happens to be the case. Sean, you got anything on your mind?
Not really. I had questions that I wanted to ask, and I asked them all. I'm pretty. I will follow your sentiment. I'm just really stoked to see how like evolves, specifically for me in bourbon or even in refill casks over the next 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I agree too. So Darren on mine, I'm really impressed with what you guys have got going on. Again, I know I've said this a couple times in the tasting, but I still marvel at how the distillery managed to get to almost 3 years without anyone knowing it existed. In a world where there's so few surprises anymore, that's a fun surprise. That's a pleasant surprise. Anything coming down the line? I know you said there's another edition of Cask Strength coming that we should be keeping an eye out for.
Yeah, so there'll be the Cask Strength will be the next in line for its UK release, and see it'll be crossing the water in due course. And then we'll be finishing off the seasonal, so there'll be another harvest, fallow, and so forth. And yeah, there's a few things we're still at the very early stages of discussing, but this, as you can imagine, there's no shortage of ideas and whatnot. So some single casks for different markets. I don't know if Andy Dunn's had any discussions yet about
I don't know. You definitely
you've
got a thumbs up. I was gonna say you definitely got his attention. So with that.
So plenty
cool.
of stuff happening, and yeah.
Well, lots to look forward to. Well, Darren, once more, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thanks for staying up late, walking us through this range. And yeah, excited with what you guys are doing. Look forward to seeing what comes next. So until next time, you have yourself a good rest of your night, and hope the sowing goes well and you have a good crop this year.
Yeah. Thank you very much for inviting me on, and thanks for the support, guys. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Darren, thanks, Sean. Thanks, Andy, Gold Medal Marketing. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a great night.
See you guys.